Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? It's one of those days where meetings got pushed and we're streaming at a later time again. Well, it still works. Hopefully y'all still can make it or watch the VOD. Today we're going to be continuing sort of the topic that we were playing around with last week. We were playing with a library called TinyBase, which is going to, within our Tauri app, help to contain, save the state, and then persist it. And they have multiple options to actually do the persisting. Hey, good to see you, Chris. So let's hop on right over to it. We got a couple of demos working. This is just straight up a copy and paste demo. Copy and pasted demo. Let's just go ahead and start it. Up the. Nope. npm run Tauri dev. That's what it is. All right. TinyBase. We're gonna drop the TinyBase today. Okay, great. It looks like I didn't break anything, and it is actually still persisting in the state, which is cool. We'll come back to how it's doing that and how we might want to change or adjust that. There's a data inspector that we are including. I believe it's store inspector. Yep. So that's still not coming through. We might want to come back to that and try to deal with it, because having that would be nice. They have, I guess we would go to one of the demos. This. You don't have this, which would be really nice, because we could. And like potentially that could be something that I think the user might be interested in. And I suspect it's something that is just being overlooked now. It's like CSS type thing where it's not being shown, or some expectation of like a DOM node that it has to attach to. It would be nice to have that, but we don't have to have it. What I do want to try, I don't think we're gonna roll with this as our to-do. Cats are scratching the couch. Also, see if they say hi. So I think we'll just switch to the to-do app, just because this is easier and seems to be sort of the natural example that tends to get used. The way this is working right now is it's using the local persister, and that is coming from the persister browser package, which is I believe that's just storing in IndexedDB. Persister browser from browser storage. Do they have a separate IndexedDB? Oh, do they do? Okay. From browser IndexedDB storage. Okay. So local store versus IndexedDB in the browser's local storage. And we do have a couple other options which we dug into a little bit last week. The one that I am curious about though would be, we might throw in the persister file one just to try it out, because that's sort of my current use case. The project that we're looking to use this in is taking a JSON blob and dumping it into a file. So we could swap out that little bit of logic and use the persister file instead. And I think this will fit in nicely. And then from there, what I would like to get to today is the persistor SQLite. And I'm not sure how that works with this persistor SQLite WASM. That's a local SQL database. They seem to have very similar descriptions. So we'll have to like dig into that a little bit. With SQLite though, we can use persistor CR SQLite WASM, which doesn't have a link anywhere, but it uses CR SQLite, which does CRDT syncing of the SQLite databases, like your local with a remote. So I think first I put my phone on silent. Yes. I think first thing we do, let's go ahead and just swap out this. We'll do the to-do app. With this would be perfectly fine. But there's a lot going on here, and I think just to keep things a little bit more straightforward, let's use. I'm gonna just straight up copy and paste again the to-do app, and I think part of it too. But part of the reason of switching to the to-do app is that they kind of have this like stepped process of adding more and more to it, which I think would be really nice to go through. We kind of have the basics, and I guess we really haven't worked with indexes, but I just suspect that there's not going to be too much there. We want to get into the persistence, metrics, and checkpoints. Maybe checkpoints today. Collaboration is probably going to happen eventually if we continue using this, but it's probably not going to be something that happens today. All right, so all of these, what's nice about all these demos is they are on CodePen as well. So where they give snippets of code, which is sort of nice for like following along and reading. It's not always easy to keep that context as you're reading through of like where you are in the code. So it's nice to be able to have like the wholesale thing here. This also makes it easier to copy and paste. And I think that's what we're going to do here. There's not too much going on. We don't need this necessarily here. But all the other pieces we can kind of copy and paste. The imports are probably going to be pretty similar. In this file, we have a main.jsx. I don't think we actually need this listener. New keyboard. Getting used to it a little bit here. I think it's mostly like my shift key is slightly different and my arrow keys are slightly bigger. Or my shift key is smaller and my arrow keys are closer in. So I will just like randomly press Control or End or what have you. Okay, I would like to not actually render at the document body, but we'll come back to that. I think we replace this chunk. Now we're probably gonna have errors, but most of our, I think most of what we have here is going to be fine. Let's look at our console. Okay. We're expecting a default export. That's fine. We don't need this. Instead of that, I'm going to say export default app. Table view is not defined. Yep, creating routes with document.body is discouraged. Okay, so the other bit that's interesting about this is we are pulling in a handful of libraries here. React and TinyBase are probably mostly straightforward here. It additionally has it's packaged all into the same thing. So kind of a sub library or adjacent component library. But UI React has a bunch of like preset components, including this table view. So we don't, like generic tables are something that we don't even necessarily need to create, which is kind of nice. I'm just gonna copy this whole thing in here again. I suspect we're gonna have some overlaps. Yep. And I think we can mostly get rid of these. Store inspector, create store. That all seems to be fine. Technically, we will end up needing. We'll end up needing the checkpoints that we just removed, but we will come back to that. All right. There we go. We will also grab, this is CSS written in less. I guess we can just try bringing it over. Transform dot tools, is that it? Yes. This, I believe, has a less. Does this have a less? No, we found a different one. Less to CSS. This is what we used last time. Hey, look at that. Our code's still there. Ha. All right. Yeah, that looks fine. And we are going to replace this. There we go. That looks much better. So now we can check each one of these off. We can add a new one. There we go. I think this is all, yeah, it's all old. Okay. We are now adding the app default export and adding it to the root. I am going to make a slight, well, what's our CSS look like? We have some stuff on the body. Then we have a bunch of classes. This might actually be fine. We can avoid rendering this at the document body root because we have a div ID root. So we can say, I just back? No. We might end up wanting strict mode. I suspect I might actually want that, but what's the default here? What is it normally? Is it actually, does this error tell us? Try using a container element. React create. This is one of those things that you like set up once and you don't touch it for like 7 months. Okay. That works for me. There we go. That actually looks better too. All right. So now, I suspect there's probably not going to be too much that we need to go through in here, since we sort of have done this before. The basics part of it, at least. So they do include the store inspector, which we still do not see. If we look at the root, we are just getting inputs. So provider, title, to-dos, store inspector. We have the input to handle the changes and on handle key down, styling, to do component. Yeah, I don't think there's anything too involved here. It is worth noting that we're using the set cell. Yeah, wow, that is kind of difficult to say. Use set cell callback, and that is, so we have a create store set tables. I think this use add row callback. Yeah, all of these are hooks that are coming from UI React. Okay. So let's take a look at indexes. So we got this, which I feel like we might need to play around with our CSS there. Because it's now on the left. So what we are now doing, we're making this object a little bit more. Is it an object? Yeah, it is an object. Okay. Making this object a little bit more complex to know what to type, and we are adding additional stores and indexes. So this step is, as noted by the parentheses here, indexes. So that is when we do a create store, we're setting a value type home, and we're setting index definitions. So we have types, to do, and type, S and no S. So from there, the code is still pretty similar. We are table view, handle click, use set callback. We're doing the type. Oh, that's for the type component. Okay. So we're adding an additional component, and when we click on it, it's it's doing a thing. So handle click is it's setting the type, I guess. Okay. And we're switching from a table view to a slice view because I'm presuming because the data is a little bit more complex. So we're kind of abstracting out the table. So use value. Okay. What we're gonna do. Did I just lose connection here? Are we back? Are we good? Says it's fine. Shrug. Flip in the matrix. So let's go ahead and run that again. And the reason we did this is now we'll stage this. I'm going to copy and paste in the new. And we'll be able to see exactly what has changed. Let's go ahead and open this again. The annoying thing, I guess, with this copying and pasting, we are going to need to clean it up every time. Which I guess isn't the end of the world. Yeah, let's just copy and paste it. That'll be fine. We can work with it. Except I'm not going to be able to completely. So my imports are slightly different. Oop. Oh my goodness. Different keyboard. It's gonna take a little bit to get used to. The provider. Okay. React is definitely not, or not React. Types. VS Code. VS Code is definitely not helping me out here. So create store. We do need to do create indexes. And we still have those and store inspector. Okay. Provider. So slice views new, cell view previously existed. It's not helping me out at all here. And that, okay. So we don't need this. Let's do export default app. And I think that's all the cleanup we actually need to do. There we go. We do need to bring in a little bit extra CSS though, because this CSS has updated, and we are going to do our, I'll just open it up in a blessed CSS. So let's just keep this open. What is this other one? CSS portal. Interesting. We are getting a transform error. It's possible that cell view. Oh, okay, that might be fine. That was, I think, from a previous page reload. Seems to be working fine now. So we can. The index sort of groups these different pieces of data. We can, from any of these, move them into a different grouping. Then we can cross them off. So I could put all of these under work if I wanted to. Still TinyBase, nice. So I think that looks good. What is the, I'm curious what the CSS looks like. Okay, so it might be like an implementation difference type thing where or like browser difference. I'm not gonna worry too much about it. The content is here. We'll probably want to come back and just play around with CSS a little bit to help us out, but I'm gonna go ahead and close the inspector, call this good. And I think this pretty much sets us up to, I don't feel like there's too much conceptually as far as indexes go. If you've worked with databases before and or SQLite, it sort of feels in the same vein. We just have these additional helpers to grab that information. Okay, so persistence. So this is going to store, this is pulling in that persister browser again. And that is, do we still have it installed? Create local persister, okay. Local and session, what's session? I'm guessing session would be every time you like refresh in our case. Not certain though. There's not too much going on. So the idea is that refreshing the page resets all the to-dos. So they add a schema and then they persist it. So here's our schema. I'm gonna manually and copy paste it this way instead. And then as part of, oh, it is separate. Okay, so there is set tables schema. Originally we created the store in as a inline function. We set the tables using an initial data set. Here we're creating the store and then setting the tables schema. And within the persister hook, start auto load, start auto save, interesting. So it starts using initial to-dos, it starts up. Now I'm curious if that will if we delete it, in which situation might they actually come back? So this is a hook, so it's probably going to be directly within this root here. Yep. So we're removing this. Get rid of all the pluses. It's using this create persister. Do we import that? Use create persister. No, we did not. That is a hook here. I'm actually just going to grab all of these so we get them in the same order. It'll be a little easier to track. All right. So we have the schema, and then we do that. All right, so we are, it looks like use persister takes a function, and that is kind of the initialization function. In this case, we're doing a start auto load and then a start auto save. Instead of local storage, we'll use the browser's session storage. That means that if the user has two browser windows open, the UI changes to one won't mysteriously affect the other. So here they are doing set values schema. Do they end up using this at all then? So what is the code pen actually end up having in it? So it has a schema and it has initial to-dos and types. Do we have all of those? Oh, okay, we do. It's doing create store, use persister. So this does have the initial to-dos. Oh, it does it twice. Okay. There's a store and then there's a view store. So it's persisting what view you are in, is what it looks like. I don't know that I would feel... I don't know that I feel that that's necessary. So it's going to come in as the default one. Okay. And I don't have the store inspector, so we're going to have to come back to that. It would be nice to be able to see that, I think. So I think like if I would close this, it's unarchived right now. And we restart it. Even if we restart it, I think it's still going to save it in that same session. I think the states are the same. Oh, no. Okay. So it is different. And we do, oh, okay. It saved that. But it didn't save the view store. Stores by D. Yeah, it's schema. Okay. I think they tweaked this top one as well. No. We brought in the top one. Okay. So we should have this going on now. Yep. So we have to-do store and to-do's view store. So that's save. Whoop. The to-do store is saving that context. We've got more type view stuff to do types, and it's using a slice view now rather than the table view. And it's pulling in the type. Okay. I think I'm good with that. All right. Do we go into metrics? I think we read through. Oh, I'll leave that open. I think we read through the metrics and checkpoints. Collaboration is definitely going to be a different stream. I think we go through metrics, checkpoints, and then we try to do the SQLite stuff. So there's a metrics object, and it has hooks. We can add a function that uses that hook, or a variable that uses that hook, I guess. You can use a variable that attaches to that hook. I feel like none of those are, I don't feel like I'm saying that right for any of those. And we do need to add metrics as a prop to the provider. And then they do a little bit of updating, which is taking those metrics that are tied directly to that store and giving like additional context. So to do 3, poem 1, work 1. Whereas we don't have any of that right now. So I think I'm going to do this all manually again. We are... What did I just copy? I think I copied this. Yeah, create metrics. We're going to do use metrics. I'm not quite sure why they did this that order. But it's fine. We can copy, paste that. And it is straight up just adding this metrics. We've got store indexes. So underneath indexes, they're adding a metrics and passing that to the provider. The metrics is taking this hook. It's actually doing the calculation. Let's just open this. I don't need the diff view. It is setting a definition and using the sum. And I think this metrics is really interesting in tandem with the TinyQL. We take a look at that. Developer tools. Command line. Slight distraction. And like we can use this with, like we don't necessarily need to use the React components, which I think kind of makes this interesting because we could do brain is going on like an absolute complete tangent here, like for other use cases, like we don't actually have to use this on the front end. Okay, basic statistics. Okay, so there's a get store stats, so we can gather statistics about it. And I think that's, I think like this and the TinyQL are interesting because TinyQL goes here. This is something that a user could, we can have like a bunch of inputs and somebody can make using a form, dynamically create a report. So like this query, we could have a user effectively generate that, which I think is a really interesting use case because with, especially in tandem with the statistics, we have the ability to give the user a way to like make a report on a page that pulls out specific pieces of data themselves. I think that's the part that's really tickling my brain, that when we can make some assumptions on the type of like financial reports that somebody would want to use, but once you have that data, if it's like locked away in an app, in a database, some remote database, you can only pull out the information that the app has decided is going to be valuable for you. And I think there is probably some commonality where what I care about might be something that you care about. But that's not always going to be, you know, the Venn diagram. It's not going to be a circle on top of a circle. There's going to be some use cases that I find helpful, whereas there's going to be some cases that y'all find helpful. And being able to expose through a bunch of inputs the ability to like build up this report and then grab specific statistics that's like built into the core of this. And I suspect it's going to be cheaper to query than if we were just like running some JavaScript to, you know, count up 1,000 items or something, or do a function on every item or a filter on every item to find values. So it feels like this will end up being a way that we can expose custom built reports for the user in a performant way that will also be flexible. All right, so we got set metric definition, get cell done, get cell type. Okay, this is like dynamic, like custom metrics, I guess. I am also kind of curious so we've got a store. There's a tools. Okay, so it should not be invoked in a production environment. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense to me, where we probably don't want to do this. If we're going to be giving any metrics to the user, we want to do it in a way that we're not just querying for the whole world and then returning the couple bits that we care about, which is what we're effectively doing here. Like, we're getting some potentially like very detailed statistics. Okay, so let's go back to metrics. So this metric is, we need to pass it, so we didn't pass it yet. Let's go ahead and pass this to the provider. And then we're going to adjust our title. Where's our title here? Here we go. Nope. Pressed key too many times. So we're going to have that number in the title, and then we are also going to use the use metric hook within the type. And then we make this small adjustment here to add the number. So now we have numbers. And that's basically like the metric portion of it. So in this case, we are defining a specific metric that we want to be able to expose to the user, and just those values. So I suspect that performance is a big reason to do it this way, as opposed to like the kind of debug method. I guess not. Lots of air quotes there that probably aren't needed. The method that's intended to be for debug purposes, where we're returning all the metrics. All right, the checkpoints. And this is going to give us the undo and redo, which I think is really interesting. And I am curious how that ends up. I'm wondering how that ends up getting synced across and handled with multiple users. If I do a thing and we're creating a stack of like for undo redo, is that same stack tracked across? Like in the use case of like party kit, does everybody have the same like undo redo stack then at that point? That is something that I am immediately curious about. But again, I don't think there's too much going on here, so we're gonna go line by line. Use checkpoints, or create checkpoints rather, under TinyBase. And we're gonna go ahead and copy this, paste. Oh, I missed a couple on the top and bottom here. Well, I'll just do the whole thing again. It's fine. All right. Complete side note, because I kind of distracted myself. Do these not work? Did I fix these? Please be fixed. I think I figured out what was causing it. Yeah. I had them all working. And they were doing the thing. And then they broke because YouTube had a blip. And streamer.bot disconnected. I paused all of my queues, and that's why it wasn't working. Okay, so we got the imports. We need to now create checkpoints. We are adding it. We've kind of got this like root component now that has the store and use create persisters. On the it's interesting because we've got like this like multiple use create persisters, and I guess it's probably just like happening on app mount. I'm presuming that's what this is. The dependency on one to like rerun this. Not 100% certain. So put that in there. Okay, and checkpoints. So it's changing based on checkpoints. So it looks like perhaps we just hadn't actually defined it at that point. We need to then pass it to the provider. And we get this undo redo component. We are then updating the new to do. Where is that? New to do. Here we go. So we've got another hook here, and this is we're basically like adding. This is like an audit log almost. Is kind of my immediate understanding. Just whoop, I clicked on a thing. My immediate understanding, just seeing a little bit of code there. Use checkpoint here. All right, so we have handle change. Yep. So now I need to, on handle key down, we're changing this slightly. So instead of just set text, we're going to both set text and set a checkpoint. And then we're putting that in the dependency array, and add checkpoint is coming from the use set checkpoint callback hook. Now we have an adjustment in the to do type. So we're getting checkpoints here. And this looks like it is so if we change the actual like to do, the to do type here, we're also going to add a checkpoint. So there's right now there's two places that the user can add or interact with us, and we're gonna have to look at it when we have fixed all of the remaining issues here. Undo redo is not defined. Okay. Okay. We'll come back to that. Hold that thought. The to do text has a few updates. We are now using use row. We'll want to look at I think we look at the hooks after this too, and look what the API surface is there. So this is replacing handle click. and we are doing more with that handle click instead. Mainly the add checkpoint, which is coming from this hook. Interesting. Oh, wait. Okay, never mind. I thought this hook was nested within the other hook. Alright, slight adjustment on our CSS. I guess we can do that. Grid template rows. Sure. And then we add a little bit more CSS. And an adjustment on to-dos. So we've got a bunch of different to-dos. I guess we put it right here. We've got a to-dos there, and then we've got a... Okay, these are all very specific to-dos. All right. So I think that's gonna get rid of the errors. Let's go ahead and give that a refresh. Oh, we didn't import the component. Does it actually tell us to import the component? I didn't see that anywhere. Got the hooks updated. Yeah, it doesn't actually tell us. Small little thing. We can make it work though. Okay. Oop. So we imported that component. Now properly. If we do a refresh. Does not. Oh. It's not an import. It's a whole separate thing. Undo. I think we scrolled right. Yeah, we scrolled right past it. So let's just put that at the bottom. There we go. That's what we want. Refresh. Okay. So now here's our undo redo. We do want to do type. So I guess we can say key equals type. That should be pretty safe. All right. So now we've got the indexes. If we add something, it's going to add a checkpoint. And now we can do undo and redo. That's pretty nifty. We can. It's just. I mean, this is a hook. So if we are specifically using a hook, but with to both grab the data and set these checkpoints. So it is, at least with this setup, it's reliant on React. But it seems to be that like embedded within this library, we have the ability to add these checkpoints, which makes exposing the ability to do this undo redo much easier. I like it. Collaboration. Do we get into the collaboration? I think we save this for as a different stream. I am a bit curious, like what is, if I would use PartyKit, of course, JS, PartyKit JS. If I would use PartyKit directly, what does that look like? Building a WebSocket server. Okay. So you get a storage API. So we could keep memory in state, sync with the party get servers. We are here, this.party.storage. So in this situation, it looks like we are directly hitting like the party get API. Storing a large amount of data. Okay, there's no practical limit on how many keys each party can store. So this is kind of more in the vein of like database-y, like this API is what it feels like. Examples. I like this. I like that vibe, so that's gonna be the one that we look at. Party kit. They've got a party kit server. And I think this is gonna be the hard, but that's a little bit more involved to handle. Where for our specific use case, we would want to potentially set up the server in a way that somebody else could take it in, like self-hosted. Presuming we are truly cognizant of local data and local sync, if we're going to do anything like collaboration type interactions that require a server, I think I would like to give the option to have that server be local. Okay, so I think that looks good. Now what we're gonna do, instead of doing the collaboration part of it, I want to try swapping this to instead use SQLite, and then from there potentially swap it to use CR's SQLite. I don't know if that's gonna also require us to use a server, so that's gonna be something that we have to think about. Persistent store to local SQLite database. So this is JSON serialization directly into my TinyBase table. So this is sort of a contrived example where, so they set up this database, and note that this is using SQLite.database, which is the, is it SQLite 3, I think? Did they actually say it? No. I want to say, okay, so we got choices on how we do it too. I want to say this is, I can't remember it. This is SQLite 3 package. So we're setting up that database directly, and this is the part where I think Tauri starts to come into play, because that's going to be a different expectation. Here it says memory. That's going to be a different expectation if we have it running in a web app or if we have it running in a Tauri app. So it saves it to the database. Destroy. Ignore error, unignored error on SQL command. Config or store table name. Okay, so this is where we would set the persistence mode. Okay. So if we look at, is there any of these that are specifically using UI components. Bit of a distraction here, but that's what we are missing, and we would like to have. These are the like values in HTML table, relationships in HTML table. Like these are the component options, I believe. Editable cell view. So this gives us an input as like a row, which is something we are actually using within our project. Using relationships. So we didn't actually set any of this up. We could create relationships, which might be worth also playing around with, but we did have the checkpoints. We added in checkpoints. So schema and persistence. This is again another sort of contrived example. Automatic loading and saving. It doesn't seem like auto load and auto save are specifically tied to the persister. The persister. Caveat: you may want to have both automatic and loading of a store. Okay, so it sort of handles race conditions. Okay, a bit curious what custom persistence is. Okay. Looks like you're kind of just doing your own thing, which I mean, I guess makes sense. But it's like within a hook, you're basically passing it a function, it looks like. Yeah, okay, all right. There's Persister SQLite, Persister SQLite WASM. That handles it in the browser. This would handle it in a node. So I think for our use case, we need to specifically use SQLite WASM. We can do the SQLite CRDTs via CR SQLite WASM. I don't know what it's going to take to set this up though. What is that? Currently, inserts into CRRs are 2.5 times slower than inserts into regular. Okay. Interesting. Got a bunch of people that I recognize in here. Okay. So we would get a WASM file. I think it's running a worker if I recall correctly. Which okay, they got some examples. Is this going to be a server that I need to run? We might end up just getting to the actual like SQLite part of it. And then the CR SQLite might be something that we need to push off just a bit. Okay. Well, let's take a look at that quick then. After this, let's go ahead and just get this working. If I make this smaller, are you gonna behave? Yeah, nice. So we need to adjust our store again. I am a bit interested to if we would want to give the option of different like database persistent type methods, we would I guess you kind of want to abstract this out a bit, eh? It loads it and calls create store, and then that store is added to the create persister. So there's a use create and create local persister. We might be able to just like add a switch to it. Whoa, that's not what I want to do. So this is going to take a store SQLite database, the DB, and then persister late. It'd be nice if this also had a documentation with the use create persister. Because I think we still want to do this, and I still think we want to do initial to-dos. We are also calling the create store set tables. So I think this set table schema is still going to work. So this is going to change a little bit here. I think we're going to need to adjust the imports here as well. I guess not. At least not that bit. So rather than giving it like a string, rather than having like the key value pair, we end up doing a store, a SQLite 3, a DB, and in this case it looks like it is just dropping it all into a JSON blob. If we have auto load and auto save on, I don't know that we need to specifically deal with the save here. We do need this SQLite. All right. So it takes us takes a SQLite and a DB. There's a WASM module that's returned from this, and that is guessing it's like better SQLite 3. Is that what it is? Better SQLite 3. So that gives us a DB. So if we do, I'm gonna do it as after this. We still have the persister browser. We are going to move this down here, I guess. We get our TinyBase import. We could probably move the CSS. I don't feel like that makes sense to have up there, but we should switch to persister Given an example of this, maybe? I feel like the examples are good, and then they show the imports and everything. Maybe we'll say here SQLite. Nope. So I don't know that their demos have any of these actually hooked up. I am going to go ahead and make an assumption then, I guess. Alright, what's the import? If we look at TinyBase, lib, persisters, this needs to be persisters SQLite WASM. And then we're going to have this as an import. And we need to do the database part of it. So this is going to be a module that needs to come from SQLite, which is import it's import database. So there's a default object. I think I'm going to say SQLite 3. Bit of a guess here, I'm assuming. It might actually just be this. Do import SQLite 3 from better SQLite 3. And then we do a const db equals, which is actually right here. I think that's fine. Let's find out though, I guess. Need to pull that in it. I don't know. Maybe that's part of the so there's SQLite 3, and there's better SQLite 3. I don't know. So if we look at better, I think better SQLite 3 has got browser support. It's not quite clear. Doesn't really say what our options are, and it doesn't actually give us an import either. API documentation. So we require, and that gives us a database. SQLite error. Every one of these are just like assuming, all of the little snippets are assuming that there is a database already. So I don't see this in it. pb.serialize. Okay. So we can potentially init. And we can do it with the buffer. So database, it's got a buffer. We here doing start autoload. Store. So if we want to do a database in memory, we are doing the import SQLite. So this is technically database by their docs. And this should give us a, what's this SQLite 3? Why does it need it? So this should initialize our database when we call new database. So new database. And I think we can do it to memory. Okay. So we can do memory to start up in memory first. We do need to do the SQLite object though. So what is that value? And I'm assuming that we've got a SQLite 3. So it's like literally just the import, I guess. I wonder if we're gonna like run into random issues, but database. Okay. I guess let's see. Let's see what that gives us. Failed to resolve. That to make some sense. We could. What is? If we look at the TinyBase code base, we should be able to see persisters, and there's no specific package JSON here. So I'm presuming it is all in the root. We're doing a bunch of type versions. Okay, so it's definitely using SQLite 3. I am tempted to just try. I'm tempted to just try it. But let's give this a shot first. I'm not. SQLite init module feels like there's something wonky going on there. The SQLite require so I'm guessing it's gonna be something like this. So from SQLite 3. I mean, we'll find out, right? We shall find out. And then we're gonna remove that. Okay. Failed to resolve import. Requires SQLite 3 verbose. So this is the, I mean, it says it specifically for Node.js. I think we're gonna have to, let's search for this. I think we're gonna have to like dig into this a little bit here. Search. I really should just sign in this browser. Okay, didn't return any. And if we look at instead, let's take out the dashes because actually, I had an extra square bracket in there. Nope, no difference. Let's do this and this. Nothing. Okay. What time we got? I think we can go a little bit longer. I am going to grab a drink of water real quick here though. So we are. All right, we are back. That was probably pretty loud. Sorry. We've got. All right, it's doing failed to resolve import, and I guess I'm assuming that we are getting a SQLite, but we're not. So I think we need to add it as a dependency. And the create SQLite WASM persister takes a SQLite and a DB. SQLite 3 is the WASM module that was returned from SQLite 3 init module. Where is that coming from? Let's go ahead and search for that instead. It's not turning up anything. So they've got peer dependencies. So they have SQLite 3 as a peer dependency. They have it also as a dev dependency, but they don't have it installed as a dependency. So we need to include it ourselves. The thing that I am curious about, and which might actually affect the decision here, I think we want to use the CR SQLite. It's going to be helpful for this. Oh, interesting. Facebook message server rewrite. Fly.io is sponsoring it, which is kind of cool. So if we install this, it is definitely, I can almost guarantee that it's including a dependency in here. Oh, I don't mean to do the readme. There is, so they've got a Vite starter. And this is specifically a Vite TinyBase TS React CR SQLite. So like this has kind of all the little pieces that we are interested in. And if we look at the dependency list here, when was this last updated? 2 weeks ago. Vite types ESLint, Vite Express, interesting. So it's pulling in this. I'm guessing the dependency is probably embedded in there. And what they're doing here is they're opening it up in multiple fly.dev tabs. Interesting. Cool. I dig this whole template idea too. DBs. Okay. I'm guessing it's dumping all the DBs there. We have a server.js, which is a little WebSocket server via Vulkan. Okay, so that's where that dependency is coming from. And so this Vulkan CR SQLite WASM, I'm guessing, has most of what we care about. So if we look at app, we have a create CR SQLite WASM persister. And we're doing import DB context. So where's context coming from? From useDB, and useDB comes from Vulkan React. Okay. I was originally going to say let's just use SQLite. I'm tempted to say let's just jump to this though, and at least for this situation. Because we're gonna have to have a bunch of these dependencies anyways. I mean, I don't care about those little bits. This is, I think, what I care about here. TinyBase debug. Is there? Debug. It's debug. So is the expectation then, if we're importing from debug, sync worker? There's some interesting bits in here. If we are importing directly from debug, it's doing a vite build. What does our vite config look like? Our vite is specifically optimizing the dependencies, but it's ignoring a couple little bits here. So it's using the debug build, I'm guessing, because then it ends up minifying that. So that's something we might want to actually think about, because we do also have vite, but we do not have we do not have optimized depths turned on. Jaws popping. I also have I don't know if y'all get this, but like noise cancellation, the active noise cancellation, I don't know, it really like I gotta have it off. If I leave it on, it feels like I have an ear infection or something. Like not pain wise, but like I can't even like put it into words. Just like, you know, like if you go snorkeling or something like that, where you feel contained. It's I don't know. So we might want to do that, but I know Tauri is also doing some of that. So we could potentially just straight up say debug, and instead of pulling in from lib, I think the Tauri builder is actually going to handle a bunch of that for us. Okay, let us so we need I close the tab that I actually cared about. Here. Close this. Let's get rid of a bunch of stuff here. We don't need party kit stuff. Better SQLite. Here we go away. Let us grab some of these dependencies. I'm going to copy and paste them out of here and then run npm install. So we need Tauri, we need React DOM. We've got TinyBase. Let's grab the Vulkan things. I don't know if we're gonna need like some of this. We are definitely gonna need this. Reactive. Simple table-based reactivity. Might not actually need that. I'm gonna just take that out for right now. I'm assuming we don't actually need that. Implement the DB interface. Card to sync a DB over a WebSocket. Oh, okay. And then WebSocket client to do the streaming database sync. Okay. Or any server that speaks the same protocol. So that's the interesting bit. If it's streaming this over a WebSocket, I don't know that we necessarily need to stream it over a WebSocket, but when we set it up, we might be able to set it up and hook it up to the Tauri backend. That might not be something we get into today, but we'll see. WSLite FS. I'm gonna assume that we don't need these little bits for right now. If we can get one thing working that persists, that is probably where we're going to call it. So if it's persisting to a SQLite database, we're gonna probably end up jumping into the syncing part of it next time maybe, because it seems like we're gonna end up wanting a server in here. Okay. Let's get these bits installed. Local first. Yep, that should be fine. We need this. Let's look at a root real quick here. So it does some setting up the DB provider. Okay, we might need that. This starts to get into CR SQLite. In which case we potentially want to start looking at some of these. Basic setup and sync being an observable notebook. Interesting. And libsql. Huh. Okay. Docs. Partial CRR sync. Not advised, not supported. Which is probably fine. I mean, I think at this point, if we're just getting some like low-level syncs, that's all I really care about right now. Intro installation. Okay, so we could potentially do some of this with Rust. And they do specifically point to better SQLite here. This feels like a bit of a rabbit hole that I don't mind actually going down, because I think this integration could be interesting because we could do things within Rust. And then we also potentially want to run a server. So we can do some of this things that are databasey backend in the Rust side of things or in a worker, and then they could either one of those could then communicate with a server. I think this is going to be interesting to dig into and useful for y'all to kind of understand how these pieces fit together in a web app versus in a Tauri app. But also just like interesting to me in general, which I think is important. If I'm not interested, then it's going to be very difficult for me to make it interesting to you. Okay, we're not using that anymore. Let's go to this one. The API definitely does not have a terrible amount of documentation yet. So I think we're just going to strictly go off of this, and we are going to, so app takes DB name, and then we start setting this up. We are going to just run this. We are doing a persister. We've got checkpoints set up here. This doesn't. So let's go ahead and create this persistor from store. Mode tabular. I'm assuming the default is probably going to be fine. We've got within our store the schema embedded. I think that will work, but I am not sure. So we are going to have to come back to that. Database name. And then we're pulling these in. Oh, I already got them in here already. Okay. Unexpected token, comma. On line 57. We're not using TypeScript. Okay. Alright, so we're getting some like root errors, which makes sense because I believe we need to set up a provider. In here, in our root, we are setting up a DB provider and rendering. So DB provider comes from Vulkan React. Come on. I think it's gonna work just as fine to do that here. Okay, based on the room, this is like, this basically ends up having like a dynamic database based on the room. Which I don't know that we necessarily need. It's got a schema content from main.sql. Schema main.sql. Okay. Interesting. So don't know that we need this get room get hash. The room is being passed in as it uses set state, so it's just a value. Let's double check to see what. Yeah, create root. Okay. So this seems fine. React client. React client with app. Okay. So we are rendering app. Instead here it's rendering the root. But I think what we can do is say we can do this. I'm gonna try putting in strict mode. We'll see how that works out. I might end up regretting it, but I don't know about the schema. And I think what I'm going to do then is say, we're just going to make this the room. Actually, no, we're going to call it the DB. Hard code it. And let's see, what is that giving us? Refresh. WASM streaming compile failed. Failed to execute compile. Okay. Failed to asynchronously prepare WASM. Okay. Now, some of this might be getting into the Tauri side of things, because there I don't believe is a default expectation that it should be bundling up WASM. So if we look at the configuration, it's pretty light. We have a package, we have an allow list, a bundle, targets all, security. What does bundle have? That's not going to help us out, is it? Oh boy. That does not help me out, does it? Web view, writing a plugin, Windows installer. All right, well, I think we want to look at configuration. I'm pretty sure there's something special that we need to do with WASM. Let us fix that. Okay. Yep, allow list, protocol allow list. Bundle resources. No. I could have sworn that we have looking for the GitHub link here. Here we go. I could have sworn that we had something specific we needed to do with WASM. WASM. That's not what I'm looking for here. Let's go to the main repo, search for issues, search for WASM. This is all with WASM bind gen, I think. I don't think it's specifically bundling in WASM files. Yeah, like it is very much just not seeing that. Whoa. We do actually have it installed though, right? Does it show up? Deps, CR SQLite. There's chunks. It doesn't actually show up in there. Is this something else going on? Let's cancel. I did an install, right? Yep. So if I do if we rerun it again, what are we getting? So it definitely can't load it. Failed to execute compile on WebAssembly. So it's not getting that WASM file. What do we search for? Dependency? npm WASM? Yeah, so like this here, well, this is Rust. A bunch of these are specifically Rust issues, or on the Rust side of things. Failed to load resource. Okay. This is, yeah, project has WASM file. How do we load? Oh. Okay. That. When we are running this, we should be able to also visit. Whoop, it's going to be, what's the URL? 1420. 1420. It might just straight away be, yep. Okay. Be able to execute compile. So it is not necessarily. It's not necessarily a Tauri issue. I'm going to go ahead and look at this. I suspect there's some Vite config that we need to additionally consider. So we need to exclude optimizing dependencies. I don't know that we care about the Vite client. Don't know that we care about the client. Server is not strict. We might need to come back to that. So I think what this is going to do is it's going to say, hey, don't actually try to optimize this. So I suspect that it's choking and not handling our deps for WASM correctly. Okay. So now if we go to this, candidate read properties of undefined, reading name. And I think that's working now. So our DB provider is getting DB name and DB name there. So if we look at this, okay, we're getting the same error. I think we've moved past this WASM bundling thing. So it was an issue with Vite, where Vite was trying to do some optimization or bundling within that module that uses WASM or returns WASM. And essentially we told Vite to not optimize or ignore it effectively. And then we're just grabbing like that WASM directly. Okay, so I think this is in SQLite now. We are setting the DB name. What are we missing? src root. So this is setting up a schema, a DB name, and then that. I wonder if this schema is required. I am going to. We've got other examples. We've got a party kit as CR SQLite, and then just TinyBase, generic TinyBase with React. If we look at app here, we've got a provider store, which is basically at the root. Here's just rendering to the root. What does guess that's really the only, is that the only SQLite setup that we have to look at as far as implementation goes? Here we're using a create store. We are persisting and we're returning a party kit persister, just doing socket stuff. Share with room ID. So I think we're kind of getting into this. We might be able to find another example that's just strictly using SQLite 3 and not this library. But this is docs as well. So let's look at okay. So we need to import it. And WASM URL. So we need to init and then open. At that point we have like this database method. So it provides a WASM build. It can be used in web workers, main thread, service workers, or shared workers. Okay, so this WASM URL will point to that WASM file directly. And it's initializing it. And then I can do a SQLite.open. So if we look at, let's look at, they've got an example here. Again, this is going to be strictly CR SQLite. This is kind of doing the same thing where it's setting up these rooms and then doing this render with the database ID. And it is pointing to a SQLite file, main.sql. And we don't have that here. We have it here. Okay. So create table, if it doesn't exist, both to and presence. I guess we can just copy this, eh? If we look here, this has got a DBs. Schemas, main.sql. Yeah, sure, why not? New folder schemas. This is going to be main.sql. We have kept it the same, so we should be able to then go to, not app CSS, app.tsx, and persister. I guess we don't actually reference it here. We reference it in root. With this little bit. So the error isn't specifically clear. So I'm going off of an assumption that we are missing this little bit, and that's the little bit that it's actually complaining about. Because we do get a different error, stream content. In which case, let's see, stream content is coming from SQLite raw. Schema content rather, not stream. I guess I'll put it right there. Oop. Come on. I've got a little bit of a cursed key set, a mix of Mac and Windows. I thought it would be fine. I didn't think it would mess with my head. It kind of is a little bit though. We'll be fine though. We'll be fine. So I need to do this import. I'm guessing that I did that import incorrectly. Create SQLite WASM persister. That seems fine. Let's just clear and refresh. All right, SQLite 3 is not defined, which is perfectly fine. And that is probably because, let's see, context, use database. I need to do this. So SQLite 3 is not defined because I need to be using that. And there is no DB there. Refresh. Create session persister is not defined. And that is specifically for the view. So the view store I don't think I care about the view store. I don't know if this is gonna make things unhappy because it's expecting it. No, okay, cool. We have something here. We do care about the view store. The view store is, it matters. It apparently matters. It's the view itself, I'm presuming. So if we go like this, this is going to be the content, I guess. Or maybe we say to-dos. And we're going to call this the view store. And I think a lot of this is the same. So like we're sort of just swapping out this persister. That might make our lives easier here as far as getting this to work. So now we should be able to do view store. Yep. There we go. Okay. We have a thing. We have a thing. Now if we say this is to do. There we go. There we go. It seems to be persisting. It seems to still give us the checkpoints and the back and forth. So if we do this, we can do redo and undo. We can switch these to a different index and back. And in each one of those, we could then undo, redo. And I'm assuming it's working with the SQLite database. And I also just noticed that we have the database inspector. We might have just hit it all. We got our metrics. We have our view store with our values. View store only has home. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because that's just the current view that we're on. And then we've got all of our to-dos and indexes. Here's our indexes. We've got homework archived. And then each one of those, it is giving us all the items within each index. Sweet. I think we got it. I'm not quite certain why the inspector started working. Maybe there's some No, I mean I don't think so. I was just say I wonder if there's some expectation to the way that this is, like which persistor it's hooked up with. But I don't feel like it should matter. So the one, I don't know if I would call it a caveat, but we are setting this up and pointing to this, but where is it being saved? It's not actually like in here. Did we? I know at one point we said use the memory. I'm wondering if it is. Let's look at not sources. Source? No. So we've got local storage. This might still be from from like previous playing around with. There is an IndexedDB, the DB. So possible shared storage. Is it stored in storage? I mean, it looks like it's storing it here. Version offset data. That's a big chunk of data. It looks like it's a buffer. So we have keys with numbers. TinyBase store inspector. So we got some more information there. Let's see if the docs say. I don't think it's actually saving it out anywhere. Can persist it to local. Does it say anything here? There's a fork. Oh, the credit for the magic goes to Sierra SQLite project. Yeah, it's pretty nifty. Does it say anything here? So network and syncing. So it's network agnostic. So WebSocket implementation is provided for convenience, but you could write your own. And I think that's going to be the interesting bit. Is what does it look like to implement this within Tauri, and then have the. I don't know if. I think we want to have the actual like store within the. I think we want to have the SQLite database run through Rust or the worker. So those are going to be the bits that I think we really care about and work with. Native Rust networking layers are still in progress. So you can do it in JavaScript, and they've got an example for a WebSocket server, and then setting up a worker and attaching to that worker. So we could do this for the and then it's hitting a server. So we could do this for the web app version. Browser persistence. So when we are use SQLite, window db. If you don't want to persist your database, provide memory for the file name or omit the file name. So here it is opening a specific one. There's like enough abstraction on here that DB provider. So I'm guessing somewhere in here, it's where we could give it like a function or something that would persisting data. I'm presuming that if we say save it locally, here's the file name. I'm guessing it's embedded in that. Database persistence. Okay, so it's still loaded or still noted here. Create store, set IDs. Here's a persister. Create SQLite WASM persister. So this saves it out. It's possible to bind TinyBase to SQLite database that already exists. Okay. I think there's probably some more reading to be had. We've got using schemas. So I think, if we would use YGS or we would use AutoMerge, the CRDT is going to be happening in the browser. I think if we are using CR SQLite, that is going to happen at the SQLite level, which would either happen in Rust or in a worker. I think I'm going to prefer that architecture. But custom persistence, persisting data. Okay, and this is actually where we're at, which demonstrates Vulkan's CR SQLite to provide persistence and synchronization via the third of these. So I'm presuming that it is doing it in memory. And I'm not seeing anything that is saying otherwise. So here's a worker. Database, create database provider, which is the same, I believe. Well, there's a database provider here because this is React. The root is setting a state, defining a specific, the room is managed by the, okay. So it's a one-time mount effect, which determines the room name. And we're basically defining a UUID, random UUID, to decide the room name and the database. So you end up effectively having multiple databases, one for multiple tables probably, one table per room. And here it is setting the room in local storage. So it's trying to get the local storage based room UUID. And if it can't, then it creates a new room. Whoop. So sync worker is, I'm presuming, the thing that's doing all the syncing. Transport provider, default config transport provider. Okay. Support random words. Assets would be PNGs. PNGs, as one might say. And here the mode is tabular. So we're not specifying this. Or are we? No, we're not. I think that's the bit that we want to double check on. If we go to this, there is a store db config or store table name. So that's the third arg. So we have passed it to-dos as a table name. So I think that's fine. On SQL command, so we can fire off like on change events. The third argument is a database persistor config object. Store db config or store table name. Okay, so we can either give it a config value, or we can just give it a string, which is what we've done. Store will be saved to the database. With the start auto load and start auto save, I believe we don't have to specifically call save. And I'm presuming that we don't need to then do this either. I think that's just handled by that. So this is loading and then getting the tables, and then it's destroying. It doesn't specifically say where this like database is saved though. And I think that then comes back around to, I'm pretty sure it's saving it within the like within the index DB or within the session / local storage itself. And I'm not 100% certain where to see that. Or where do we configure it? There is React, yeah, React.js. So this does, use query, interesting. Okay. So we can do a specific query, which is kind of nifty. A DB provider to provide one or more databases to componentry and kickoff sync. So I think that's the important bit, is that I believe that this provider is the piece that is doing the lifting. A cool thing, you can get cross-tab sync for free. Okay, so open this page in many tabs and interact with the widget. So if we have this, and we also additionally open this, is it going to sync? Did I just change something? Because it seems to not be working now. What did I just change? Oh. I don't think this unload is working. Because now I've saved in, then they auto-loaded. So if I add a new one to on the left, we are currently on home. In the, whoop, okay, all right, fingers. On the right here, up there, we are also on home. So if I add, okay, they're not syncing right now, which I think makes sense because we don't have the worker. There's this bit. I don't know that we need to actually do that. Is that actually live? Nice, that is live. That's kind of cool. This is very... Okay, reactive tables. It is doing a component. First, use query. First, pick. We use HTML to write JSX-like syntax. Okay, so this would be not React. It was kind of weird to have this on the React page. I mean, I guess. Use state, there's HTML. Okay, I don't know that that's specifically helping us too much. Okay, persistence is, as you would expect, just providing file name with when opening the database. But we're not actually opening the database. We aren't specifically. So db, await, open. Once we get the DB, we can do things with it. So how do we... Okay, that definitely still has a few things there. I think there's something... I suspect there's something with the... like the syncing doesn't quite seem to be working, and I think there's something going on with the... well, not necessarily the persisting, but the persisters start auto load, start auto save. I don't know that that's actually working. But we have gone for almost 2.5 hours. I think we got a bunch done. We were able to somehow the store inspector just started magically working. So again, I think it was just something wasn't quite hooked up correctly. Or CSS. It seems to be somewhat persisting. I don't think it is. I don't think the query or something is specifically working because we are actually getting these in the store. Okay, that might be the easy way to tell. Are we syncing? If we look here, yeah. So this doesn't have. Now, I think it makes sense for the browser part of it because we don't have that worker. And the worker would be the thing doing the sync. And we don't have anything hooked up with the app either, so the app can't be syncing as well. But we got the inspector working. We are doing data. It seems to kind of be working. It's saving the values in and out. For some reason, though, this part of it is not working. View store, to-dos. So I suspect we have something going on with the start auto load, start auto save, and not working with the WASM persister. But we're very close, it feels like. I think we're gonna have to call it there today. I think what we do next week, and this might end up being starting to roll into other topics, but we could potentially throw one of these like syncing services up on like fly.io or something and give us something to sync to, and see if we can get like that's the syncing part of it all hooked up and squared away. But I think we might be persisting. I think we might actually be persisting in SQLite, but in memory, or at least in the index DB. That's stuff we're going to look into next time, though. We're close. It feels like we're close, but it's probably one of those things where it feels like we're close, but we're not. I can see the end of the tunnel, though, is what it feels like. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Next time, more TinyBase. Is this the TinyBase? I don't even know what their symbol looks like. Go with it. Go with it. We'll see you next time. Wherever my button is. There it is. I need to move it or something. I always lose place of it. But anyways, bye.